A lot of people are saying, why does it matter? This is a recipe, and it's just based on her own homemade jam, but it does send out a message. People think they're buying into the illusion of something crafted by royal hands or formerly royal hands. It's not quite as it seems.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think this is the gotcha moment that the press are hoping for. This is actually industry standard. To meet demand, she obviously has to outsource where it's manufactured. She can't set up a production line in her kitchen. But as I said, this is complete industry standard. If you look at Martha Stewart, she's had a whole career on building homemade products, food products, and also homeware products. They're all manufactured in Pennsylvania while she lives in New York. So I don't see her anytime soon setting up a production line in her New York kitchen to meet demand. And even if you look at the Windsor Strawberry Reserve that's being sold on the Windsor website, that's not made in Windsor. Believe it or not, it's made elsewhere in factories around the UK. So yeah, this isn't the gotcha moment that people are hoping for. It's actually just a smart business move, really. If she wants to be able to meet demand this time around and not sell out within a half an hour like she did the last time, this is the only way to do it.
Oh, you're being very charitable there. But what about the carbon footprint? Here's a couple that fly to the Google climate change conference, stand there barefoot, having flown on a private jet, and they're flying jam 2,000 miles across America. You're not telling me they could make that jam a little bit nearer to their Hollywood estate?
Well, the carbon footprint is actually every single business out there. If you look at all the businesses, large companies, all the ones that we know today, they all use manufacturing plants that aren't in the location where the product was created. So it's
Hey, sweethearts. Welcome back to the channel, where we always serve up the truth with a side of flavor, and we don't play games with smear campaigns. Today, we are diving into a moment that had the tabloids sweating and the haters gagging. Because this week on GB News, there was a segment titled Meghan Markle's Sticky Situation. Now they thought they had her. They really did. They had the dramatic music, they had the smug setup, they had their talking points ready. But what they didn't have was Ellen, Coughland. Oh, honey. They invited the wrong woman to the segment if they thought they were going to drag Meghan Sussex without a fight. Because Ellen came armed, not with anger, not with shade, but with facts, logic, and that rare thing called media integrity. Let's rewind for a moment. So, Meghan Sussex, our Duchess of Freedom, Fierceness, and Finesse, launched a brand called As Ever. It's a soft, intentional lifestyle line. She sent out a beautiful raspberry jam to close friends, complete with handwritten notes, no press release, no PR circus, just taste, care, and intimacy. It sold out instantly, but the press just couldn't handle it. The Daily Mail, GB News, the usual suspects, they suddenly went into scandal mode. Why? Because the jam wasn't physically made in Meghan's personal kitchen. Yes, that's the whole controversy. Apparently, using a professional facility to manufacture your product, like literally every other celebrity brand does, was now cause for outrage. They said calling it homemade was deceitful, that Meghan was being manipulative, that she was pretending to be something she's not. Let me say this slowly for the folks in the back. Meghan is the visionary, not the factory worker. And nobody, not Gwyneth Paltrow, not Joe Malone, not even the King's Organic Biscuit line, is personally hand-churning their products in a Windsor basement. This is how branding works. And that's exactly what Ellen Coughland explained, with crystal clarity, on GB News. She wasn't loud, she wasn't angry, she was measured. She said, quite plainly, that this is standard, that it's not dishonest, that Meghan was well within bounds to present her product as curated and home-crafted. Let me quote her directly, "This isn't a gotcha moment, and baby it wasn't, it was a reach, and Ellen shut it down before it could take flight." And let's talk about Ellen for a second. Ellen Coughland is not some Meghan fangirl off the street. She's a respected journalist and broadcaster, a woman who actually understands the media, who has worked in fashion, publishing, and brand communication. She's been on both sides, behind the scenes and in front of the camera. So when she said there's nothing scandalous about a lifestyle brand outsourcing its production, she wasn't defending Meghan blindly. She was speaking from industry knowledge. She said what most rational people in marketing already know. Branding is about the story, the concept, the aesthetic, not about whether Meghan was up at 3 a.m. stirring berries with a wooden spoon. But the GB News journalist wasn't satisfied with logic. Oh no, when Ellen didn't play along, he switched gears and suddenly tried to question Meghan's carbon footprint. He asked, "But what about the carbon emissions of transporting jam 2,000 miles?" And listen, climate is serious, but we're not going to pretend that Meghan is single-handedly melting the ice caps because she used a global supply chain like literally every other luxury brand on Earth. Ellen, without even blinking, reminded him that the majority of high-end products in the UK are manufactured elsewhere. She said, "You'd have to apply that standard across the entire industry," and she's right. Because let's be honest, no one asked about the carbon footprint of Prince William's helicopter habits, or the dozens of flights taken for royal tours. But suddenly, Meghan's raspberry jam is a climate crisis? Please. When that didn't work, the journalist pulled the final desperate card. He smirked and said, "Do you work for Meghan?" Now that, right there, tells you everything you need to know. When a woman dares to defend another woman, especially one like Meghan, the go-to move is to question her motives, to suggest she's on the payroll, to undermine her voice, to paint her as biased. But Ellen didn't flinch. She simply replied, "No, I just understand how product branding works." That, my loves, is grace. That is professionalism. That is a woman refusing to let herself be baited into some tabloid mess. And let's pause here to truly appreciate what Ellen did. She didn't come in with slogans or sides. She came with the truth. She didn't defend Meghan because it was trendy. She did it because the backlash didn't make sense. And in an industry drowning in performance and clickbait, a woman telling the truth calmly and clearly is, honestly, revolutionary. She didn't let herself be dragged into a media circus. She stood tall. She explained what needed explaining, and when they tried to twist her words or laugh her off, she didn't clap back. She elevated the room. Now let's be clear. Meghan Sussex is used to this. She's been called a liar, a narcissist, a manipulator, all because she dared to live her life outside the confines of a palace that never fully accepted her. So when she builds a business, something clean, elegant, sustainable, and deeply intentional, it's not just a product launch, it's a declaration. It's her saying, "I don't need your crown, I'm building my own kingdom." That's what the jam really represents. Freedom, craft, vision. It's a product of peace, and yet the media turned it into a scandal. But thanks to Ellen, that scandal didn't stick. She reminded the audience, and, all of us watching, that success doesn't have to be explained or apologized for. That making something meaningful doesn't mean you owe the media access to every stage of the process, and that women, especially Black women, don't need to justify their excellence. And Meghan? She doesn't need to respond to every smear. She's too busy creating. So here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to sit by while the press tries to tear down two women simply for speaking and building with purpose. We're not going to pretend a GB News segment built around a pun and a smear deserves more credibility than the actual work being done by women with vision. And we're definitely not going to let Ellen Coughland be dismissed as some mouthpiece, when she's one of the only people in that space telling the truth without theatrics. So shout out to Meghan for making jam that tastes like freedom. Shout out to Ellen for standing in her truth and refusing to be used. And shout out to all of you for watching until the end, because this community, we see through the mess, we elevate the voices that matter, and we don't crumble under pressure. We spread, like, comment, subscribe, and leave a jam jar emoji if you're done with the nonsense. Let them know we don't fall for setups anymore, not on this channel, not in this era. Until next time, keep your truth sweet, your tongue sharp, and your sisters defended.